All right, ladies and gentlemen, this time I'm not coughing and spluttering before we start and everyone's saying, Matt, your mic's on. Your mic is on. You're coughing and spluttering. I don't know. Last month I was just coughing a lot before we started. I think I drank some water wrong and it went down the wrong way, down the wrong pipe, and I was coughing before we started. This time I sound much healthier. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society virtual live stream. Of course, it is our Depths of Wood Discovery Thursday, 18th of April. It's part of our April Outturn. Which you can see here. There it is, Music and Malts. It's on your screen along with me at the moment. Where's DJ Maddie Muzak Bailey? Yes, I'm right here. You heard the music to start us off. No, actually, that music was actually one of my favorite DJs. Anyway, and then we've got Music and Malts month this month, of course. But tonight is all about depths of discovery of wood and different wood types, and we'll talk more about that because we have a special guest. But before I introduce our special guest, Carlie, we're giving away a bottle of 31-year-old single cask Islay whiskey this month. It's $1,400 value bottle of whiskey. You just got to refer a friend to join the society. If you're a member, refer a friend. That's it. It doesn't cost you anything to join. To refer. Of course, it costs to join. It's a membership fee. This is about Depths of Wood Discovery. We're going to taste through six, I was about to say 6 whiskies, but that wouldn't have been entirely correct. We're going to taste through 6 spirits, and we're going to introduce our special guest, Carlie Dyer, who's all the way from Melbourne, Victoria, with me, of course, who's joining us live. Here we go. Carlie, welcome to the stream.
Hi. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this session tonight and talk about wood.
Thank you so much. To give everyone a bit of context, what's your role at Starwood? What does that entail?
So yeah, I'm one of the blenders at Starwood. I work a lot with the mature stock. I did start as a distiller and brewer in 2018. So this will be my sixth year at Starwood. And then I naturally progressed into the maturation section, and my history is in wine. So Starwood mainly mature in wine casks, so I sort of found my niche there.
Awesome. There's lots of people tuning in. I can see lots of comments coming through. Of course, evening out from fans, you know who. Yes, I do know who. All giving up with YouTube, but maybe some people are having trouble with YouTube. Normally that's the one that is really strong, and Facebook can be a bit buggy sometimes. Betty's already imbibing. She's ahead of us on the dram, so we might actually tuck right in and not waste too much time. And yeah. Corbin says, hi all, great to be here. Carlie is, without a doubt, one of the most, I'd say, accomplished experts in understanding casks, understanding maturation, understanding wine, understanding how the maturation process works in Australia. And I'm so glad to have you on the stream with us. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening, because I'm imagining you're one of those people that has to get up at 4:15 a.m. or something, and you start work at 5 or something, Okay, yeah.
6 a.m. It's asleeping.
Okay, right. Okay, good. So you normally look a bit more like this, of course, in your fluoros. If you get past Starwood, get say hello to Carlie. She's often running around and doing a lot of the blending with Jared and her team there. It's so great to have you on the stream. Tonight is about Depths of Wood Discovery. You can see here someone pouring some spirit out of a cask, and the cask is stamped SMWS. There's a lot going on at this society in our wood program at the moment, and we want to talk more about that. But also, usually when we get to craft a tasting for these virtuals each month, it's usually 6 different whiskies or spirits from different flavor profiles. Like we'll either pick different flavor profiles or new releases, or sometimes we've done distillery verticals, like 6 drams from one distillery, or we get to do things like that, or from one region, or from one or a certain age statement and up. Tonight's a bit different. Tonight's you can even see there's 2 spicy and sweet profiles. We normally don't like to double up in profile, but the thing is, it's about the differences in wood types, and every single cask we're trying tonight is a very, very different wood. So where I'd like to start us off is, of course, in the Armagnac region. If you guys want to pour a 5.6. I'm not going to try and say the name of this Armagnac. My French is not that good. But you can see the Armagnac region there. It's a very small little part of France. I want to start by saying, let's just take a look at this distillery, just visually. This is not 5.6. This is, of course, you can see on screen, it says Glendullan Distillery on the side wall. The reason I'm showing this Scotch whisky distillery is because most distilleries, especially across Scotland, look like this. they're a bit drab looking. They're a bit run down. They've been there for a couple of 100 years. And they're making great spirit. However, I want to show you now what distillery A5 looks like. Come on. I mean, what's going
Oh,
on? Scotland, lift your game.
it doesn't
Imagine
look
going to
like it
just
needs a good gurney. That's one.
exactly. And it looks idyllic on a beautiful countryside surrounded by vineyards and look at that. Okay, I wanted to show that real quick. This is distillery A5. Carlie and I are going to have a nose and a taste of this. Yeah. Thank you. Look, Justin, I can see it. I can read it. Thank you. I'm not going to try and say it though. I told you my French is that bad. I wouldn't even dare try and pronounce this. Okay, A5.6.
Wow. I was really excited for this when you dropped off the pack and I read the little blurbs.
So yeah, it's we had one of these A5s before, like years ago, A5.2 or something, which had this distinct bubblegum note that I still get in this one. It must be from their spirit. I love that pink. It's like pink Hubba Bubba note.
Yeah. I get a lot of like kind of leather and earthiness as well.
Yep. Yeah. Leather. A bit of aniseed as well.
Yeah, and the floralness from the grape as well.
Cloves and leather, I reckon, says Betty. It's a good call. Yes, answering Corbin's question, the booklet is in tasting order. You can pre-pour your drams as you go, folks. We're starting with A5.6. Of course, you can go through and pre-pour them. It is in complete order. Comment from Severdale here. Carlie, Starwood better pick up their tasting notes on the bottles. No, there's a suggestion for you.
Yeah. You can only fit 3 on the label though. So maybe we need to change that.
Yeah. I love that I love that sort of pipe tobacco, old school rancio kind of thing, old wine cellar thing going on with this one as well. Oh, sorry, it's Dave Cook. Sorry, yeah. It's like your name's in jumbled letters here, Severdale. So it could be Dave. I can see a Dave in there. D-A-V-E. There's a D-A-V-E in there. YouTube is being weird again. Yeah. It does that. Facebook does it as well. They all do it. It's great. Gets a bit weird. So, Carlie, let's the focus on tonight is about types of wood and what each one means. I've zoomed in, so it's ruined my. There we go. A5.6 Gascon Black Oak. So let's start off with what is that? What is Gascon Black Oak?
Well, I guess the region is Gascon, so they would have grown oak from there. And I know that a lot of Armagnac chateaux are fortunate enough to share the same sort of terroir with their like grapes. So this is Oak de Blanc. So they would share that with the oak trees, which is really amazing when you think of it, because you know how you always hear about there being kind of like partnership plants, like you plant basil and tomato together. I imagine that doing the same thing with grapes would also have a similarity, like a harmonious kind of thing with the grapes and also the oak that's grown in the same region. But I don't know how far we want to go back. I mean, like if we want to talk about how oak got to France and how it migrated from Spain and how.
Yeah. Well, we can touch on that. I mean, and we can also talk about how Armagnac itself started in. I should say single distilled grape spirit sort of started in Germany and made its way to France. And so it's sort of one of those things where there's all these influences that have come from all over the world that have built the product as they know it today. I mean, just on a basic level, we should let people know that Armagnac from that region is typically single distilled and is typically often gypsy distilled, as they say, as in like it's a roving still that goes between different vineyards. But yeah. I mean, how far back do you? I mean, we can at least touch on some of the history of this. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, totally. I mean, with the oak as well, a lot of people used it initially to build, and oak trees kind of harbor a sort of a place for food to grow. So there was like often at the base of the trees there would be berries and truffles and things like that. So the original word, or like the Latin name of oak, derives from nourishment, which is pretty cool because that, you know, birds also eat off the acorns of oak too. So it's like this tree that provides everything. And so um yeah, I think like how it originally got to being made into wood to mature spirit, and is like a fascinating history as well. But Gascon oak is like quite similar to French oak. You get that sort of spice in it. There's I guess it
I mean,
has a type of grain.
you've played around with cognac casks as well, haven't you? Through Starwood.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has been pretty cool. Like I think the oak has been quite tired at that point, but we get a lot of the influence of the cognac previous to in our spirit as opposed to the oak. But yeah, this is really interesting.
Corbyn's written, I have a bit of a Boilermaker going tonight with a bottle of homebrew Irish red ale, sessionable at 3.4%, and actually pairs really nicely with this Armagnac. I love it when you find unexpected pairings like that, unexpected Boilermakers. I'd never think to pair a beer with an Armagnac, to be honest. It's but if it works, it works.
Yeah, neither have I. I've never even thought about pairing Armagnac.
No, well, yeah, I mean, certainly not in a Boilermaker setting anyway. But I'm glad that works. That's fantastic.
There's a lot of earthiness in this, though, don't you reckon? Like earthiness that I think is oak derived.
You think it's all oak derived, that earthiness?
Some of it.
It could be like how much of that could be spirit, or at least I don't know.
Well, I guess given its single distillation, a lot of that like aromatic wine character will come through and be the most prominent thing. Whereas that like leather, forest floor, kind of there's a little bit of musk there, to me anyway.
Yeah. Do you think that if you nosed this blind, like didn't know it was an Armagnac, like do you think you could almost confuse that for being a rye?
That's a
Just
good point.
that sort of earthy, spicy kind of note that you often get off a lot of sort of like American ryes. If you presented that completely blind, you could almost be forgiven for thinking it's a bit rye-ish. I think. Anyway.
Yeah, true. I think I could be fooled. Yeah, and there's actually a note that I find in a lot of ryes that have high volatility, and I see that in this. So I think the translation is very clear.
The proof is unusually high for this. Most of the single cask Armagnacs, because they've only been single distilled, often sit 44, 48% ABV. But at 60.4, it's certainly punching above its weight a bit. Yes, I was literally just saying that, Darren. It's distilled 1989, still 60.4. That's pretty high ABV retention on this one. Question from Justin Farmer: why do you have the year on the bottle rather than the number of years matured, like on SMWS whiskey bottles? That's a very good question. I think this pertains to just age standards that are in line with French laws on spirits rather than Scottish laws. So, I should say HMRC or UK laws. You're supposed to show the distillation date. It's because it's more or less it's treated like a distilled wine rather than a whiskey, which is accurate. Just as you don't see the age on a bottle of wine, you see vintage. So you see a 2006 bottle of red wine, you don't see a matured for 18 months in wood red wine, so. But no, 60.4%, but no need for water. I'll agree. I have not added water to this. I've got a water jug at the ready, but I don't feel the need to add any to that. I think it works really well at that proof.
Yeah, it does. I did add a little bit of water.
Mm-hmm.
And the palate actually just sort of like turned real tannic.
Okay. I just love that rancio. I love that old wine cellar thing going on.
Yeah. This is beautiful.
It's lovely. It's very harmonious in the end. It's quite tight and integrated. It's lovely.
Is there still some of this available?
In fact, yes. This one actually officially hasn't come out yet. It comes out in the next Outturn. We've just put half a dozen bottles up on the website. It is still available. It is yet to be formally released, but we're putting a small allocation up tonight for those who are watching along virtually. It's great question from Mal here. Is it also because of the notion that grape continues to age even in glass? Yes, I would assume that that is what drove the laws in France to go with vintages rather than age statements, or to at least maintain that over time. And it's, I mean, this is something I could really just like go full soapbox on about, but I won't. But it is really like, I mean, whiskey also changes and ages in bottle, in glass over time, which is what I think whiskey nerds will often refer to as OBE, or old bottle effect. To what extent? I think it's slower than wine. Obviously, it's slower than Armagnac and cognac. But yes, and people looking for their referrals here. Are you a member, Carlie? If not, I can refer you to the society. Good. So you can get your look at winning your 53. Yes.
Thank you.
One of those A5.6s is making its way up north. Great to hear Darren and Carla there. This is great. Okay. Well, shall we press on? That's lovely. It's a lovely first one to start us off. I'm going to keep half my sample aside of that one and grab a fresh glass.
That's really cool.
And we're going to be pouring B7.12 next, which is getting up there in numbers now for a B7 code, for a B code. In fact, I think that's the most number of B casks we've ever bottled, which for those playing along at home, B stands for bourbon. I'm just going to make a big screen for a second here. Ooh. Distillery B7 is an absolute juggernaut of a distillery. As you can see from this elevated sort of drone photo of the distillery site, it doesn't even capture the whole distillery. If you can see right in the far top right of that photo, there's still massive warehousing going on up there as well as an old building right in the front here, which still has the old Seagram's branding on it. And Seagram's Distillers since 1957. Sorry, I'm definitely not that old of a distillery. Sorry. And this distillery has been going since 1914 and has recently been undergoing some big changes even in the last 3 years. This is, of course, I could be wrong. I think it's the biggest distiller. It's, if not the biggest, it's one of the top 5 biggest distilleries in the United States. They're known for putting out all sorts of spirits that you may have seen, like Ezra Brook and Yellowstone and Rossville Union and Remus. They have probably the most boring distillery name of all time. I'm trying my hardest not to say distillery names because we don't talk about distillery names at the society, but I will say this one. It's just MGP. It's as simple as that. It stands for Midwest Grain Product. It's about as boring a name as you could possibly imagine. But here we go. B7.12, Foraging Fruits of the Forest. A 60% corn, 36% rye, 4% malted barley mash bill on this one. And the reason I've chosen this is because it's matured entirely for 5 years in a first fill level 4 char barrel. So I'm hoping Carlie can illuminate us a bit to as what is charring and what do those numbers sort of mean. And because in this case we've specified a mash bill, we've specified we want it to be 60% corn, so I'll call that low corn, 36% rye. So it'd be in American parlance that would be a high rye bourbon is the best way to put it. Like if it is, or just probably more of a typical mash bill than anything.
Yeah. First, before I launch into that, I want to say, so I read the tasting notes in the little booklet that came with this, and blueberry muffins really stood out to me. Like I feel like the SMWS tasting notes I love so much because they just resonate so deeply with like what's in the glass. But I have a little edit. I reckon box blueberry muffins made with dill butter.
Box blueberry muffins made with dill butter.
Yeah.
Okay, we definitely need a cask called that in the next 12 months. There we go. I'm going to submit that name to tasting panel for one of our other B7s maybe coming through.
Please. But yeah, in terms of char, so you typically have 4 levels, and that's rated by seconds. So normally when you char a barrel, you'll take one of the heads off, and then you'll put it over an open flame. And level 1 is 15 seconds, and then there's 30 seconds, 45, and 55. So
who decided 55? Because that feels like it's out of place. It should be maybe 60. We're going in increments of 15 here.
I know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't. That's a good point. Maybe I should look into that.
Yeah, someone decided that at some point.
It
They
is a
cut
bit
it short by 5 seconds. Yeah,
yeah, 55, not 60. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the wood starts to burn and turn bad in that last 5 seconds. Who
very
knows?
likely, very likely. Yeah, yeah.
But number 4 is considered alligator char. And so American oak has a lot of vanillin, a bit more vanillin than French oak. It also has a compound called lactone, which is coconut, which imparts a sort of viscous mouthfeel as well. So if you preference American oak over French oak, a lot of people do because it has that soft palate, and that's usually the lactones. The pores are a little bit larger than French oak, so there is a bit more tannin, but the lactones and sweetness balances it out. American oak also has higher levels of sugar in the wood. So when you toast and char those, they sort of caramelize, and the more you do that, the more sort of toffee, kind of like caramelized banoffee characters come through. Like in a supercharred cask, I always see like banoffee pie and caramel melts.
It was actually Adam on my team had banoffee pie for the first time in his life last week.
Oh, banoffee pie is amazing.
I know it's shockingly good stuff. It's one of my favorite desserts.
Yeah, me too.
Great comments and questions coming through. Caramel and hint of hazelnuts with water, says Betty. That nose is fruity, says Corbin. Is that a distillery or a Ford factory? Yep, it looks like they could produce motor cars in there as well as distillate, I should say. Justin says they tried 60 seconds, but the entire cooperage went up in flames. Yep, that's also
Valid.
very valid. Yeah. And Darren and Carla say liquid blueberry muffin. The rye has tamed the corn.
True.
Yeah, it is very rye-ish. Again, it's got that lovely rye spice in there. It's still, you can still clearly see it's a bourbon. Like it's still got that lovely corn sweetness going on, but the rye has definitely tamed that. We had a couple of CWs through, folks. You probably some will remember the corn whiskies we've had through. They're very sweet. They're very corn forward, but not actually that sweet. I mean, they're very, very interesting anyway.
It's telling to the spirit that it can stand up to such an intense barrel, like all of those corn and rye characters still coming out after an alligator char. I think if somebody like just a malted barley would really, unless it was peated, would really be suffocated by that oak.
Yeah, good call. By the way, this for me is the kind of bourbon, especially at that nice 56.3%. This bottle would vanish for me very quickly.
Me too.
This is an easy drinker. I could just like pour a nice biggie of that in a nice sort of tulip tumbler on a Saturday afternoon kind of dram. Like it's not. This is an easy one to vanish. Corbin, banoffee is overrated. Ooh, wow. There's many desserts I would call overrated. Banoffee is not one of them. But you do follow up by saying it's a glorious whiskey tasting note.
Yeah.
There's a comment here which I just want to highlight. Darren and Carla says, MGP do great spirit. So great, it seems half the US spirit industry uses their spirit. On that point, I just want to I've made a quick list here for those who are interested. I won't post the list. I'll just quickly read off some brands that source, if not entirely, at least or predominantly from this distillery, include Pinhook, Blue Run, Backbone, Redemption, Copper and Cask, some Heaven's Door stuff, Smooth Ambler, Smoke Wagon, Oak and Eden, Redemption, Fiddler, Penelope. There's so many. Like there's so many. Tin Cup. There's literally like dozens and dozens, if not probably even 100 different bourbon and rye brands out there and corn whiskey that source. And it's sourced spirit from this distillery. It's a very different trade in the US for creating whiskey, and this is even the brands I showed on screen just before are just a selection of their own. That's what they produce from in-house as their own brands that they own, but they also do a lot of sourced spirit for a lot of other brands.
Yeah, I think they have little brands, right? Like with their initial spirit while they're laying down their own, and then which is kind of cool. I've been thinking about this though, like how Smoke Wagon, for example. I've tried one of their whiskeys and I tried to find stuff out about the spirit. And I mean,
Mm.
like people who really like whiskey without a story behind it, it's sort of like is lacking a little bit. So yeah, I'm wondering like what that sort of like I
Well,
guess
the story becomes the brand rather than the spirit.
yeah, which is smart
Um,
sometimes.
I mean, it's if when you're drinking, say, uh, Boss and Squibbed Remus, you're not really thinking. It's like, oh, I love MGP. You don't ever hear anyone say, I love MGP. People say, oh, I love Yellowstone, or I love Rossville, or I love Smoke Wagon, or I love Tin Cup. They know those brands, and I think it's a very interesting industry to be in because it's you can sort of create any mash bill. You could say to MGP, I want 50.1% corn, 49% rye, and a smidge of barley as an enzyme, and that's my mash bill. Or you could say to them, I want 99.9% corn,
Mm.
and I'm going to create a brand out of it, or I'm going to build a product out of it. I think it's kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen some great stuff over the years, like Pikesville and
Mm.
Pikesville rye is great rye, but it's an
Yeah.
MGP product, and it's like there's some great products.
Yeah, they really do.
But we're really lucky at the society that we've managed to work directly with MGP and do our own mash bills and finally release some of these American whiskies coming through, which is great. It's only one code for us, B7. B7 is the bourbons that we get out of MGP. There's a rye code as well. I can't remember that off the top of my head.
Oh, Matt, can you remind us what the mash bill was again?
60% corn,
Yep.
36% rye, and 4% malted barley.
Mm. Wow, cool.
And in fact, and then it says in the full tasting notes, matured in a level 4 char new oak, barrel with level 2 char heads.
Yep.
So very, very fun. Lots of fun.
Amazing.
Okay. I'm just going to grab a few comments and then we'll move on to the next whiskey. Carla and I are saying it would make a killer old fashioned. Yep, that would make a killer old fashioned. That'd be lovely. In fact, last night, it was only just last night, I had a cognac old fashioned.
Oh, I saw that. That looked amazing. Invite me to the next one.
All right, done. That was fantastic. That was a really good, actually, cognac old fashioned.
Yeah.
Could not see us lasting long in my house either. Yep, or either, however you like to say it. Yeah, this is an easily killable bottle. I'm going to come to your question, Justin. Don't worry. After trying this neat, I almost don't want to put this in a cocktail. Yeah, okay, it works neat. Works. It would. Wouldn't want to put it in a cocktail. Yeah. Before we move on to the next whiskey, question from Justin. Carlie, what is your opinion on the use of native Australian woods? We've had quite a few red gum casks. Your views on their success and the scope for using other woods. Oh, a wood question for our wood expert. Thank you, Justin. That's great.
Yeah, that is a good question. My view on native woods is that they're very intense. They're really hard to make barrels out of. So normally barrels, if there are trial barrels, it would usually be the headboards because you can make them straight. It's hard to mold red gum because it's a really solid wood into like a curved stave as a barrel. Um, I think there needs to be more trials and research done, and I think it's a really interesting like direction that the Australian industry is trying to go down. But I also think that oak has been around for like a long time since the 18th or 17th century, and I don't want to like shut down native woods, but for me, I'm definitely more spirit driven, and I'm kind of a traditionalist, so I really like bourbon casks, second fills. I like to see the art of the spirit and the flavor, and I do find native woods a bit too dominating in their character. But I think in low doses, maybe they could contribute a nice character. I haven't played around with them personally. We've got some trials going on at Starwood, so I'm yet to do some trials and things like that. But and then there's also the toxicity as well of native woods, which is yet to be researched and thought about. So that's my honest opinion.
I'll just stack onto that comment as well, Carlie. It's also worth noting that yes, it is. I mean, using native woods in spirits is extremely new in Australia. It's been used in wine. It's been used for a long time. They've been used in even rum production very early on in rum. But in terms of whiskey, it's very uncommon, and it just doesn't make for a great maturing product a lot of the time because of the reasons it's such a hard wood. It's impossible to bend and shape as into your will. You end up creating basically red gum cubes that that aren't that leak a lot and actually have a really absurdly high angel share as a result as well, and just they lose a lot of liquid. Well, I shouldn't say angel share because it's not naturally losing it through the wood. There are hardwoods, but it's still they're not very great for the carrying vessel. And while oak isn't native to Australia, it's still the best we have in terms of maturing the spirit. But great question. Thank you. Please keep them coming through. One more comment here was RW5 is the rye code for the MGP. Would they potentially in the future also be in the CW code? I'd say so. I don't see why not. We do need to move on though. We're gonna keep pressing on here. Yeah, I'll use that glass. Hold on.
Big char.
Big char. Now, Big Char is not a new release for the Society. This one is probably the only one tonight that's not a new release. It's from a very I showed this photo before. These distilleries are not very sexy looking, but thankfully the output is, because we get casks like this 84.37 that was an absolute favorite with the team Whiskey and Almond. This is one of the team favorites from, I'd say, earlier this year we released this, or late last year. But the reason why, of course, it's in this lineup is because it's spicy and sweet, but it's also ex-bourbon hogshead for 10 years before a transfer into a second fill heavy char hogshead. So we're experimenting with second fill. It's our first proper chat about second fills tonight. And also not just second fills, which Carlie just said she's quite a fan of, but also, second fill heavy char hoggy, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, I really love second fills.
You guys are doing some great stuff with second fills at Starwood at the moment. I've got to be honest. Like some of the second fills I've tasted from you guys are fantastic.
Yeah. So currently we've been using them in blends because as you see in this spirit, it's spirit forward. There's a lot of like tropical. There's heaps of esterification going on in the glass, which happens.
What is esterification for those playing along at home?
Oh, so the production of the amazing smells you're smelling right now. So an ester is a reaction between an acid and alcohol, which produces a smell that you're familiar to. So if you smell this, we look at one of the tasting notes. We've got fresh strawberries. So that's an ester. And that will actually be like a chemical compound that's binding to your receptor that registers in your nose as like what you find familiar to. So that's esterification. And that happens for some reason. I don't know why, but it seems to be more intense in second fill charred barrels. The first fill, I think there's too much oak influence. And then the char has a sort of an additive character to the spirit where it sort of refines it. It's sort of like a filter, and it takes off those harsh initial new make spirit characters. But then it imparts a lot of oak. So when you fill it for a second time, you're getting more fruity compounds coming through, or fruity esters coming through, and like a little bit of char. I think it's like it's my favorite type of oak balance.
There's a couple of wood-related questions coming through. Corbin Mondi asks, what would be the point of having level 4 char barrel and only level 2 char heads, apart from the obvious tampering, the flavor typical of level 4 char? Corbin, you've pretty much answered your own question there. It's just to find different results, is to just play around with flavors and see what happens if we do 4 char and 2 heads. That's kind of the fun of it. Like, you could do it around the other way. You could do level 2 cask and heavy char heads, which I know we've done before as well. It mixes things up a bit. It doesn't provide the atypical output of that spirit. It provides something that might be a little bit more interesting, more balanced, more more sort of fascinating in terms of output. So yeah, it's up to our casking team at SMWS who look after that as well, which is predominantly these days the filling side is done by Kai, our spirits director, and the downstream side is done by Ewan Campbell. And then a question from Darren, or Darren and or Carla, sorry, I should say, for Carlie on cask recasking. What would be the traits that she would be looking for that would make her think, okay, this cask needs to be recast in, say, a heavy char or other barrel?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at Starwood, most of what we do is wine cask. So wine's a very volatile substance. It's really hard to keep our barrels stable because we don't want it to be sulfured. So the wine industry puts sulfur candles in their barrels to keep them stable. And that just removes all the oxygen, and it allows for a safe environment where no bacterial growth will happen. But that's detrimental for whiskey. So if we fill a cask with that, we're going to get sulfur taint, which is different to spirit sulfur. It's quite a horrible feeling. It's very metallic. It mutes the nose. It feels like you're drinking wasabi. So we do a lot of cask checks when they come in. We make sure they're okay. We sign them off. But sometimes maybe some sulfur will carry through into the spirit. So when we taste it, that's normally when we'll move it to a charred barrel if it has a little bit of sulfur in it. And then when you think about wine as well, if the barrel, it's a hard balance because you don't want it to be sulfured, but then it might go volatile and turn towards acetic acid and then even worse, ethyl acetate, which is nail polish remover. Just you have you ever left a bottle of wine open for I don't know, a month? It starts to turn to vinegar. Maybe not. Maybe some people haven't because you.
No, I certainly have by accident. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it goes vinegary. Well, the same thing happens with the barrel. So when we do move things to heavy char, it will be to remove particular small sort of things like sulfur. But then we do have our barrel program where we put our new make into charred barrels for a component to blend with, because first fill American oak char is amazing. It's those big bold flavors. It's still red wine cask as well from us. We get them charred and they contribute to a lot of the mouthfeel and the finish of a lot of our blends.
Yeah. This big char release, by the way, this 84.37 is for me, I just love that. It's what's that? German breads, like sweet pretzel bread and beer kind of notes. It's I just love that. It's like salted bread and beer.
Yeah.
And that is literally my kind of whiskey. That thing. It's just got that lovely layer of spice. It's complex. It's a bit of black tea notes.
I really like it.
Yeah, it's a very honest Scotch whiskey. It doesn't have to have the char. In this case, it's a bit like some of the sherried whiskeys. Like the sherry has not overwhelmed the cask. In this case, the second fill hogshead has not overwhelmed the spirit character.
No, and it's the taste.
Sleeper code, absolutely, Corbin, absolute sleeper code. Sleeper distillery. This distillery, we didn't talk about the distillery much, but it is one of those sleeper distilleries that is high output for. I can say this. I won't say the distillery name, but it is the Singleton. You've probably seen the Singleton as a single malt on the market before. So this distillery predominantly goes into that, and so to taste a single cask strength with sort of fun wood usage from a Diageo workhorse distillery that pumps out a lot of spirit for a brand is kind of cool to taste.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Goes really well with my Irish Red Ale too. Corbin, I think this Irish Red Ale is sort of the most versatile beer ever produced on Earth at this point. If it goes into this as well, that's great. Great comment from Justin Farmer. There is definitely good and bad sulfur in my humble opinion. Yes.
Yeah. I agree. This, in the tasting notes, there's a little bit of like the dinner mints, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, I sometimes see that in char, like a little bit of mm, mintiness, and even with us, like eucalypt as well.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And you said bread like.
Bready, like it's a bready spirit. I don't know how to describe that. It's like
Yeah, that's
it's
actually a compound that
yeah, right.
it's called conifer aldehyde.
Conifer aldehyde. There you
Conifer
go.
aldehyde, which is bread like.
Mm,
Very specific, but
I like it. It works.
I love it.
Yeah. I especially love refill. Like this has
Yeah.
had an initial cask in ex bourbon hogshead, so I'm assuming that's going to be refill as well into a second fill heavy char hoggy. So it's gone from refill to refill. The
Mm.
second refill has had 2 years in a second fill heavy char. It's just got that lovely spice and char going to it. Sleeper code, sleeper cask, absolutely underrated whiskey on our site, which is good segue to go. There's your QR code. Any of the casks that you taste tonight are available on smws.com.au/shop. Grab them there, including Big Char. Big Char is like not new release, as I said. This has been out for a while, but great to see it back into a tasting here. Whilst we're doing that, let's pour our next whiskey, Little Dram on the Prairie. I'm not sure if my order's going to be right for this, but we'll see how we go. So we'll pour 140.12. Now I'll do that thing where I say I couldn't possibly tell you the name of the next distillery. That won't hopefully give it away. That big photo on the screen right now. Which cask this is from this distillery in Texas. But here is 140.12, also spicy and sweet, and at a punchy 62.0%. It is initial cask French oak barrique. We'll get Carlie to tell us what the word barrique means. And second fill export barrique following. So it's had a fun sort of journey between 2 casks here with an extra maturation. It's unusual to see a 4-year-old whiskey, first of all, at the society. That's quite young. But second of all, a 4-year-old whiskey that's had both initial and final casking.
Wow. This smells amazing.
It smells thick and buttery to me.
Yeah, it smells really buttery. It smells
like
kind of
black
creme brulee as well.
creme brulee.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of like caramel toffee note as well. Like the kind of toffee that breaks your tooth kind of toffee.
Yeah.
It's that sweet, that really hard toffee. I don't know what that's called.
We have that toffee, like, the Whittaker's chocolate?
Mm.
It's a New Zealand brand, but we had these like toffees that were coated in chocolate, and they were 50 cents when I was at school. And yeah, you'd break your teeth on them, 100%.
Yeah.
You just take them
tooth breakers. Yep.
Suck on them. Like half of it would be hanging out your mouth, and the teacher would be like, "That's not allowed."
That's not allowed.
You put it like into your whole mouth, and like it doesn't resolve, and you're like face. Yeah.
You're speaking from experience. I take it.
Yeah, I am. I'm speaking from experience. Yeah, this is really cool. This is so a barrique is a 200
French oak. Where do we? So it's French. It's ex French oak. Yep.
Ex French oak. 225 liters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the French have their naming system, which is a barrique, 225 liters, and then hogshead, and then puncheon, which is 500 liters. Hogshead's like 300. But yeah, French oak retains a lot of spice. It's absent in the compound it's absent in lactones. So the coconut flavor that I was speaking about previously. So that, to me, a French oak barrel has a lot more of a taut palate, like really like tight. It has like a linear finish, whereas American oak has that mouth coating, like sort of voluptuous, kind of full, takes over the room kind of vibe. Whereas like the French oak is like very restrained, and you can taste that on the palate. French oak also has a compound called eugenol, which is clove. So, which a lot of people can interpret as different spices. Hence, why we say something spicy like nutmeg, cedar, um, clove, which I see in this.
I think a lot of people just learn a lot more about French oak than they ever thought they would. That's fantastic. It's such an interesting wood type because it's so different from American oak in many ways, and imparts such a different flavor profile. There's a couple of questions coming through on this one. Matt, do we know how long it was in each barrel? Yes, it was 1 year in a French oak barrique, then 3 years in the second fill export. So it was almost a reverse. It's not really a finish almost. It's just it was a starter in something else, and then 3 extra years in full Texan maturation, which I can imagine would be a bit like maturing whiskey in Australia. In that it would be high, very active wood, cold nights in winter, warm days in summer, kind of thing. So high fluctuation in temperatures, and after 4 years was very much ready. Great comment here. Question, I should say. Another one from Justin. What the hell is going on with American single malt? 143.2 is a revelation. Yeah, 143.2 is one of my favorite whiskeys so far this year, and I've talked about it before. It's unbelievable, and this is another cracker. Yeah, there's so much going on. I want to ask Carlie a bit about this as well. American single malt is a category that's definitely starting to explode a bit more, get a bit more attention. We're seeing, we always associate bourbon and rye with America, and I mean, especially bourbon, because bourbon has to be bourbon. If it's US, it has to be bourbon. You can make rye anywhere, but you can make single malt anywhere, and we're seeing a lot more single malt coming out of the US. What are your thoughts? So is this a growing trend? You were going to see more and more single malts, you think, out of the USA?
I think I've been seeing this trend happen for like the last 6 years. So, and it's interesting because at least they are allowed to like deviate from what their country specifies as what is illegal whiskey.
Yeah.
Whereas when you think of Scotland has like a lot of very intense laws on what can be whiskey. Whereas maybe the States didn't realize like they're like, yeah, bourbon, we got to make it like this, we got to make it like this, but we can actually make single malt whiskey too and market it outside of what is represented by America. So why wouldn't you? I guess it's sort of I reckon we will see more of it, and it's really cool. Like there's a lot of distilleries, single malt distilleries in the States, which are giving bourbon a run for their money.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren and Carla, who are recently over in Texas, one thing we did see in Texas you don't get in Melbourne is temperature swing. Where we were there one day, it was 25 degrees at midday, and the next day it was 2 degrees at midday. You can only just imagine what that does. I mean, we get 4 seasons in a day in Melbourne too, but it's not to that extent of temperature swing, that's for sure. We get, it rains and then it hails and then it's sunshine and then it's cold and then it's warm in Melbourne sort of thing, but it's a fluctuation of 6 degrees, not 23. So what you can only imagine what that does for casks. Betty says Americans do not have the same expertise as the Scots. Absolutely dropping spicy bangers like that, Betty. You're going to get you'll definitely upset some Americans with that one. I don't know that that's true either. So, well, Scots have been making single malt maybe a lot longer.
Yeah, it's true. And, same with Australia, to be honest. Like, we're going through probably the same teething processes that the Scottish went through like 200, 300 years ago,
Yeah.
Experimenting with like other malts.
And the Scots are looking at us going, yeah, we did that in the 1700s.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, amazing. But yeah, it's a big whiskey, but it's lovely. It's got that. I love that toffee note. I love that.
62%.
It's pretty punchy. Yeah, doesn't drink like it's 62 for me. Drinks like it's like maybe mid 50s.
Yeah, I agree. It's good.
Goody, good. But just again showing the different cask types that we're playing around with at the society, in that example. when it says French oak barrique, do we assume the original cask was virgin oak? Ooh, that's a good question.
I
I'm
think
gonna have to. Yeah.
it says previously contained baby blue corn whiskey.
Oh, it does too. Sorry, right there on the tasting notes, Corbin. After 1 year in a French oak barrique, which previously contained baby blue corn whiskey, which is their blue corn whiskey they make at that distillery. I almost said their name. But yeah, so no, not virgin oak, but once used virgin oak that was once used for their blue corn release, their baby blue that they release every year. Does not drink at all like a 62%. Did anyone else add water to this? Carlie, did you add water to this at all?
No, I haven't, but maybe I will.
See how it goes with water. I might add just a drop to mine as well. I think I added a bit too much, but that's okay. So where have we gone? We've gone from Gascon Black Oak to first fill Virgin Oak level 4 char to a second fill heavy char hoggy to a French oak into second fill export. We've had a pretty wild ride through the casks so far.
Yeah.
But we have 2 more to go. And I hope everyone's happy to press on with this. So here we go. We're going to pour 36.189 Andalusian Breakfast. A 12-year-old from Distillery 36. Oh. So, this distillery 36 is on the lower slopes of Speyside's Sentinel Mountain, also known as the Ben. It is another one of those intriguing. It's an intriguing distillery that has a very individual new make quality, very in demand by blenders. This distillery, and has never really had a proper single malt brand. They've had this. Every time I say that, I always have to like asterisk sort of thing. Yeah, it has been seen, I think, in the Flora and Fauna series, Diageo's Flora and Fauna series, if you can call that a core range. The Flora and Fauna series in itself is a funny backstory to that, which we won't go into tonight. But anyway, has been a long innings between 36s for me. Yeah. For me as well, actually, if I'm being honest, I haven't had a 36 in a while. So this is actually quite exciting for me. I really like 36 distillate because it's a worm tub distillery. It's old school sort of production. And in this case, I wanted to pull this one out because it's deep rich and dried fruits and also ex-bourbon hogshead into a first fill custom toasted hogshead. So we talked about charring before, but we'll talk a little bit about toasting. And in this case, it was 10 years in ex-bourbon and then an additional 2 and a bit years in a first fill custom toasted oak, a toasted American 70%, European 30% oak hogshead with toasted heads. Whew. Carlie, toasting.
Toasted head.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think from a flavor perspective, like toasted heads and toasted barrels sort of lean into more of a nutty spectrum. Whereas like once you start to go towards char, you're getting towards a more caramelization of the compound, the sugars.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the toastedness it's still maintaining the sort of like spice that's there in the wood and also the tannin from what was either in the wood or previously from whatever was in the barrel before. You get like this nice balance of that sort of fruitiness and then nuttiness. That's how I identify toast in compared to char.
Okay. So I'm just getting my next image up. There we go.
But this is interesting because like this spirit is normally quite heavy and sulfury. Like, I mean, not in a bad way, but like it's known to be a big spirit and it's really quite fruity.
Corbin, that 53 is a fair bit darker in, I think. I can't tell. Maybe you're right. Yeah, better be careful. Although the nose on the 53 will give it away as we get up to it. There we go. Sorry, I was having a bit of a technical issue here. There's the image that we need to see. 36.189 Andalusian breakfast. The cool thing about this is there's no sherry involved. I want to stress that. It's a toasted oak hogshead from an ex-bourbon hogshead. So it's deep, rich, and dried fruits in profile. It looks and appears as if it's a sherried whiskey, but it's not.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's one of those examples of where the flavors and desirables from sherried whiskey can be carried by non-sherried casks.
You're teaching me something, Matt.
There we go.
You're pointing out the obvious, though. That's very true, because I said this is nuttiness, and nuttiness is a sign of oxidation in wine, which goes back to sherry and fortifieds.
No sherry casks involved in the production of this whiskey. Just toasting. I think Darren's saying that because he knows it'll be a cool story. Matt, you should do something on flora and fauna and the annual Diageo cask strength releases. Just been trying a few tonight prior to this. Yes, we are bad. Lol. Yeah, I mean, I've tasted through all those releases. There's some good stuff in there. There's some also, it's personal preference. So there's some goodies in that lineup. But yeah, that's another thing. If Corbin gets confused over distillery 36 and 53, please call the police. There's an imposter in the mix. That's true. I've had 4 full tastings tonight, Matt. Leave me alone. You're getting there. It's good. On a glass, they look very similar. In glass. Yeah, okay, look, we're struggling a bit. It's good. It's good fun. No, I was going to say, as soon as you stick your nose in the glass, you'll know which is which. This is an example of just of what's going on in the society's cask program. There's a lot of interesting wood being worked on. At last time I checked, and I'm not sure how this compares to others you've probably worked with, Carlie, but we at the moment I think we have somewhere around 68 or 67 or 68 different woods maturing out of the 30,000 something casks that we've got. So there's in like ex-bourbon, first fill, second fill ex-bourbon, first fill, second fill ex-Oloroso. There's 4. Then add 62 more on top of that. Ex-Guianese rum, ex-tequila, American oak, European oak, Russian oak, all those things that you start adding up into different types of configurations makes for a lot of different configurations. In fact, nearly 70. Which is kind of fun of just like playing with flavor and playing with wood. As I've said before, as a society, we are not distillers. We don't distill product. We mature it. We are maturers of spirit. We lay casks down for sometimes decades, and as you've seen through even Vaults collections, releases, and whatnot.
That's really cool. Maybe we'll need a warehouse manager.
Yeah, are you looking to move to Glasgow? There you go, sorted. See, how has this not touched a sherry cask? This is bonkers for a whiskey that has not been in sherry. It's deep, rich, and dried fruits profile. So you're like, okay, it's got to be sherry. No. Flavor profile is determined on flavor, not on cask type. I'm pouring the rest of that sample because I really want to enjoy that. That's lovely. And it's got that rich meatiness and a nuttiness that the spirit often gets from Distillery 36. Yeah, okay, great comment here from Darren. Interesting that the char has made this whiskey darker and richer in flavor, yet earlier, the 84, it made it more tropical and light. Yes, very interesting. Carlie, can we talk color for a second? Can we talk like color in whiskey?
Yeah. Definitely.
It doesn't really tell you much, does it? Or what's your take?
Well, in a barrel that has never had a liquid before, say like no wine, like a virgin barrel, it's very pale. Whereas if it had held wine, like sherry, PX, red wine, whatever, you're going to get that color. And then you'll also get color from the char too. And I think in second fills, what I've seen in Australia is that it takes if it's a wet fill char, like barrel no char, it will
Mm.
take twice as long to mature the spirit and be towards the same color, but it will still be lighter as a first fill. Um, so it would take 8 years as opposed to 4 years to be a fully matured spirit. But with charred barrels, they're always like second fill char, always lighter.
Mm.
Um, and I guess it's because the previous spirit has absorbed all of that color from the liquid beforehand. Um, yeah.
And you guys mature in predominantly in X wine, as we know. But you have played around, as we said earlier, with cognac casks. You've also had ex bourbon casks. You've also had
Yeah.
what else? What other sort of wood types or ex cask types have you seen that have really sort of surprised you and how they've integrated with Starward Spirit, for instance?
I mean, the Lagavulin release we did last year really surprised me because
Yep.
you've taken two really like intense spirits. Like Starwood has its own like DNA going on. The like
Mm.
wine cask, the fruity estery spirit. Lagavulin has its own thing going on, and then like melding those two together, it was a bit scary to begin with. We had no idea how it would like eventuate.
It's a lot of risk.
It's
It's
a
a lot
lot
of
of
risk.
risk.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jared and I checked on them like pretty frequently, like every 6 months. And probably for the first 12 months, we were like, oh, everything was like clashing and not working. And it was weird. It was like meaty, phenolic. Um,
But that's kind of a good thing that it's clashing early, because it
yeah,
often means that it will be better later.
it will be. Yeah. And it
Because
did.
if it's working, if it's really integrated early, you go, oh God, do we need to get these out now? That's
Yeah,
what- you know,
that's
like
true.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of the time when we're doing experimental casts, I think we've learned to just step back a little bit, leave it for at least a year and a half, 2 years, and it will come back. You know,
yeah, yeah.
it comes back, it integrates. And I was really surprised by how the Lagavulin blend was really quite well integrated. It had a lot of like phenolics, like the smoky peatiness,
Mm.
but also the Starwood kind of DNA behind it.
Yeah. So it was your Starwood DNA, or because it wasn't new make into those casks, was it? It
No,
was ex wine casks that went
yeah,
into yeah.
yeah. It was pretty much a Nova blend that went into those barrels for 18 months.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, is it 18 months extra now? Is it, or is that it started a bit younger though, didn't it? It was like the peated finish and unexpeated and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
They were younger. They were like 12 months, and like the Lagavulin project, we like had, I guess, certification that they were from Lagavulin, and there was like a collaboration there. So we got their like freshest casks
Mm.
because the peat intensity increases through all three of those projects.
Whilst we're enjoying this 36.189 and just how bonkers it is that it's a deep rich and dried fruits whiskey that tastes like a sherried whiskey, but just clean as a whistle and not a hint of sulfur, because there's no sulfur candles used in these non-sherried whiskey casks. But let's have a look. There's some great questions coming through for Carlie here. So another one from Justin. Does Carlie have a view on casks that matured / aged liquid, wine, spirit, etc., as opposed to seasoned casks?
Oh, okay. So like having matured
So,
spirit.
like, Justin, we assume you mean like sherry casks that perhaps have been either from a bodega versus that have been seasoned.
Yeah, I do. I think it's very hard to replicate 18 years of maturation as opposed to 6 weeks.
Mm.
You can definitely see that complexity in both spirits.
Mm.
Obviously, like as a big distillery, we do a lot of trials because not a lot of people are drinking sherry, or I mean, a
No.
Apero, or even sherry. But
You can say sherry. It's fine.
yeah, yeah, sherry, and people aren't drinking enough sherry or Apero. So to like feed the demand of whiskey distilleries,
Mm.
I definitely think a cask that has held sherry for 18 years as opposed to 6 years is going to have that depth and complexity. It's really similar on the nose, but on the palate, you can really tell. And I know some people are doing kind of like forced maturation and like forcing the liquid into the cask, which is pretty interesting. But it's all about time, I think. Like at the moment, we're quite young, a young industry, and we're not sure how seasoned casks come up to like actual matured.
Justin, you've got to appreciate. I mean, it's very different in Spain and in Europe for this kind of industry, but in Australia, there really isn't a seasoning program that's of any sort of scale yet. There is some seasoning going on, but it's nothing near the level of scale or consistency that you'd see out of Spain as yet. Great comment from Dave. He loved the Lagavulin release, was brilliant. Don't really like Lagavulin that much. There you go. So it's obviously the Starward DNA was in ex Lagavulin casks was more your take. One great comment from question here. Quick one for Carlie. Is there a preference for extra as Pinot, Merlot, etc.? Is there a reason why the palpable?
For us, we get a lot of our barrels from the Barossa, so the Shiraz and Cabernet. We do get some from the Yarra Valley, which are Pinot and Chardonnay. And I think for like our core products, we prefer the heavier reds because the wine influence is like more present. But we have done Pinot cask finishes. Like we did a Yearing Station collaboration, which is I think just exclusive to airports, and that's Pinot. And the lighter varieties definitely have more kind of like reserved flavor notes. They're quite softer, but in terms of a maturation perspective, they take longer to mature because when you have a new make spirit, there's like it's quite an awkward kind of thing. It's got like the faint characters and the high like new make spirit characters. So like red wine, like bigger red, sort of like help mature it quicker.
Very similar to the sherry industry in Spain, where whiskey producers much prefer the heavier, sweeter sherries for maturing in as well. So Pedro Ximenez and Oloroso are the two most commonly requested, especially Oloroso. Whereas people don't really hunt down Manzanilla or Fino casks very often. So it's the same reason. I mean, lighter varietals of red wine outside of fortifieds in Australia.
Make finishes, yeah.
Yeah. We'll go to one more question and then we'll keep pressing on. Sorry, there's a lot of questions coming through. We're trying to get to as many of them as we can.
No, I'm happy to go through questions. I just have to get some water.
Some what, sorry?
I'm going to go get some water.
You get some water. Well, and I'll
yeah.
Yeah, right, do it. She'll be right back, folks. This is your chance to pour your 53 your 53.415 into your glass though. And we'll press onto that one in just a moment. Corbin, I see your question. There's quite a few questions coming through on different platforms. And a couple of comments I'm not going to put up on screen. But folks, this has been so good to have Carlie on, and she needs some water. I might take a sip of mine whilst we're here. I'd love to see photos from your virtual tonight. If you've got a setup, a full setup. I mean, my setup's going to be a bit different from yours because, presenter setup is going to be a little bit more fiddly. But if you've got your glassware set up on a Depths of Wood Discovery tasting mat that it comes in every box, please post it on our socials. Post it on our group, or post it in the SMWS Outturn chat, and we'd love to see it. Really, we love seeing the photos coming through from the community. We're going to head on to the next. Dave, my desk's messy too, mate. I'll still take a photo of it if you want. It's an absolute nightmare. It's a mixing desk. There's multiple monitors. There's key lights. There's microphones. So it's a mess here as well. Don't worry. Okay, well it's not over yet, Darren. We're going to move on to the next one. Please post your photos, folks. We love seeing how you guys are enjoying these virtuals. We love hosting them. I know they were huge in COVID. They're still good now, though. I mean, they're great now because we're still putting great whiskies into these packs. 53.415. If you guys want to pour that into a glass now, in the meantime, whilst we're just getting that ready, I keep talking about how, actually, quick plug, if you haven't got your tickets for Flavor Hunters Festival coming up in June, Tasmania and Melbourne still have tickets available. Brisbane date and event will be up shortly, and other cities to follow. Sydney has sold out, folks. In fact, it's oversold, so I'm stressing about that one a bit, but it's good. However, just to show you some of what's going on behind the scenes, we've just had 5 whiskeys tonight, or sorry, I should say 5 spirits. One was Armagnac, an Armagnac, sorry. We've had 5 spirits. None of which were from sherry yet. This is the first one tonight that's from sherry. Here is one of the old bodegas that is one of the Jerez bodegas. It's got a new roof, but it's an old building, this one. And there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes at SNWS at the moment. So I was going to say Perth as well. So thank you, Corbin. There's a lot going on behind the scenes at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society at the moment in terms of our sherry program, especially coming into this year. Just a bit of a precursor. About 5 years ago, our spirits team said they'd like to get to something like 35% of all society releases, all society whiskies coming out of ex-sherry casks in some way or another, which is a pretty ambitious number, considering it was sitting at the time around 12%. And they wanted to increase the number of sherry cask availability. And that meant working directly with bodegas and sherry cask producers that normally say no to most of the big distillers because their requirements are too big. Ours are pretty small, thankfully. So we're able to actually get access to these sherries and these sherry casks to mature some of these amazing whiskies. There's our spirits manager, Ewan Campbell, posing with a glass of sherry matured whiskey from one of our Bond stores. There's a lot of work going into just direct supply with these bodegas and these cooperages. And there's Ewan again on the left with his cool sunnies on, looking at the cask being charred. And it's not just ordering off a stock sheet. It's going to these bodegas direct and actually sourcing these casks and there's some American oak ex-sherry casks going on here. There's Kai on the left, our spirits director, going through some staves, learning a few things from one of these cooperages and bodegas. And that leads me into dram number 6 tonight. I couldn't possibly tell you the name of the distillery, even if it's printed on the broadside of this warehouse that doesn't actually warehouse any stock. So let's move on to whiskey number 6, 53.415. Here we go. Bring that up. This is our first actual sherry, has an actual sherry cask in it for tonight, because we've had such a variation of different casks. I want to save, I'm going to call it the best for last. I love this 53. We get a lot of 53s through at the Society. You guys know that because it's 53.415, which is the 415th cask that the expert tasting panel has approved from this distillery. However, we get some lovely younger ones, some 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old casks out of the Distillery 53, which are lovely and brisk and bright and very spirit forward. And then we get stuff like the Vaults Collection 53s, which are 30, 31, 33-year-old, long-aged, very delicate and beautifully tropical 53s. Hugely great stuff. But there's this sweet spot in the middle, especially with sherry casks this good, that then get to mature. We get to play around with for 15 years. And I love this whiskey. Now, we've not formally released this one yet. This is a pre-release. I've put just 6 bottles up on the website for now. They're going to be popular because it's a 15-year-old, where is it? There we go. 15-year-old peated, sherried whiskey. So, Carlie, XPX, let's talk sherry. Let's talk sherry cask. Or in your case, you would call them a para. Can you explain to us what the difference between a para and sherry is for those playing along?
Yeah, well, I guess the main difference is sherry has like an appellation tied to the name. So that's why we call it a para here. But it is essentially the same winemaking techniques. Although for the Australian palate, I think like sherry and fortified wines came to Australia in like the late 1800s when there was like a heavy migration of Europeans coming over. And a lot of it was to actually do the irrigation between like what runs through the Murray River.
Right.
I've spent a lot of time in Griffith, um,
Okay.
in New South Wales. There's a big Italian population, and I know like sherry evolves from Spain, but you know a lot of the sort of fortified wines did come through the Italian winemakers and wine families who started and moved to Australia in the late 1800s. And a lot of those families just wanted to make wine for their own tables / table wine. And they've turned into like De Bordelais and Casella, like huge, and like McWilliams. So like the Apera barrels that we got were from McWilliams and Griffith. And for the Australian palate, a lot of the fortifieds here are really sweet.
Mm.
Sugar. You've got like cream Apera. You do have like older styles, but it's not a common drink, so a lot of it is quite cheap. Whereas in Spain and Portugal, you've got like port, Pedro Ximenez, sherry, Fino, and things like that that are like still a wine that a lot of people consume.
But Spain is, this is the problem though, that Spain is not a powerhouse population of consuming sherry. They make a lot of sherry, but this is the problem. People don't drink enough sherry, so that's where seasoning comes in, especially over in Spain. But yes.
Exactly, yeah. And then I guess the people that do fuel that industry are the whiskey industry, who make these relationships between bodegas and distilleries, being like, I'll buy the sherry from you to season my casks and whatnot. But I think personally, you know, sherry is a lot drier and like less sweetness, a lot more sort of like older, rancio characters than Apera that you see these days. I mean, do you drink much Australian Apera, Matt?
No, I don't. It's as simple as that. I really don't. In fact, I don't drink much except whiskey.
You can get a flagon of McWilliams for $17.50 from Dan.
The fact you know that with the exact price straight off.
Why aren't we drinking it? No.
Yeah. It's a worryingly accurate number you've thrown out there. It almost feels like that was a plug. It's like available at Dan Murphy's now, a flagon of McWilliams. Yeah, but no, I don't. Yeah,
you can make it a pot plant.
A what? Sorry.
Like the flagon, you can use it as like a pot plant.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah. It's a very trendy pot plant. I mean, that's not your usual sort of pot plant. That's more like a hipster cafe pot plant, but it can work. You know, it's like the one vine out of that massive bulb full of a terrarium, if you like.
Okay.
There's some great comments coming through. Bought my ticket for Perth Festival tasting on Tuesday night. Awesome. This 53 is like drinking pizza. That's a really cool tasting though. It's like it's got that like supreme pizza thing going on, maybe like a little bit of pepperoni and supreme or something. I like that. Corbin's got some exploding head emojis here. Jealousy juice. You could call 53 jealousy juice. We are 53 fanboys, Matt. Good to hear. A pair Australian sherry Spain in a nutshell. Yes, that's one way of putting it. There was a question I promised I'd come back to. Justin, again, with the cool questions. How fresh are you able to get your wine casks, Carlie, given that many wineries don't know what/how many casks they can give up in advance? Are most solvent, or do you get wet casks?
Yeah, so we deal with like AP Johns in Australia, in South Australia, who are like kind of like a barrel broker that like buy from all of the wines.
They're one of the big ones. Yeah,
one of the big ones. So they always have our demand available, which is awesome. And
that's great.
We've been a long-standing customer with them, so we can specify the level of sulfur. So we want a little bit of sulfur, just enough so it can get to us in a stable condition, but not too much that we have to spend 2 hours washing and steaming the barrel to get the sulfur out.
It's funny, in the whiskey world, the word sulfur in the wine world, sulfur is a word that people know and use and embrace and can use the positives in. In the whiskey world, the word sulfur is often turned into a bit of a negative. It's like, that's sulfured. That whiskey's sulfured. Oh, it must not be very good. But it can often be a good thing. As Justin, I think one of Justin's early comments is good and bad sulfur, and a lot of that is spirit sulfur or cask sulfur. There's both. Spirit sulfur is usually quite desirable. Cask sulfur is usually not desirable, but it varies on occasion, and there's levels to everything.
Yeah.
Normal says he's surprised at the lack of innuendo with a title like Depths of Wood. Yep, that's fair. That's fair. We have lacked innuendo so far with the title of this tasting. I do apologize. And
maybe we're virgins.
We're both virgin oak here, Carlie. It's fine. The 25-year-old McWilliams show releases are amazing. I think I'm missing out on these things. They sound amazing. This is why everyone who drinks whiskey should be going to Dan's and buying sherries. It's cheap and awesome and goes great with jamon, cheese, and every other afternoon delicacy. Yeah, look, I do drink sherry. I just don't drink that much of it. I don't drink that much of Pera, as per Carlie's question earlier.
We drink Spanish sherry and PX and stuff is only like $28 from Dan's for like a 750 ml bottle.
Yes, goodies. How do we all like that 53 though? Carlie, what do you think of this 53? Tell us more about it on your take.
Oh, I think it's really interesting. I like it. I think, the peat that's there is really interacting with some of the oak compounds because there's similarities in that. Like one strong compound in peat is guaiacol, which is also found in like the smoky compound in wood, and also eugenol, the clove-like compound that's in French oak, is also a phenolic compound. So like phenolic phenols usually contribute to a smoky character.
And this one's American oak XPX as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Betty likes anything 53. Yep.
Look, it's big.
Yeah, it's a big whiskey. It's also the consistence. It's the most consistent distillery on Islay, that's for sure, if not all of Scotland in some ways. Definitely off the best for last year. I love this whiskey. It's not been formally released yet. It's coming soon, but I wanted to throw it in this lineup because it's like sherried 15-year-old 53. It's just big. So good.
I've always loved the salinity as well of this distillery.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I've always loved those. I just love it when you get something from this distillery that's a bit out of the ordinary, as in like so much of it is in ex-bourbon. Like,
yeah,
there's something that's ex-sherry from this distillery is always like a rare treat in some ways.
It's really cool. This whole lineup has been amazing. Like just
thank you.
Whole like fruit salad of different whiskeys.
Actually, Corbin sort of jumped my gun here a bit. My order for tonight, 5336B7A511484. I'd love to hear, just drop a comment for those tuned in right now. Drop a comment of what your favorite spirit that you tasted tonight was. And you could do Corbin and list them all in order if you want, but even just if you just list the first one. So Corbin's favorite tonight was the 53, followed by the 36 in that case. Darren's written, it's a brilliant example of wood effect on base spirit, even in terms of S&WS releases, which is a consistent banger from this is brilliantly different. Yeah. Like that's kind of the fun of playing around with these kind of tastings, Darren and everyone else. It's just that you get to experiment with so many different wood types and actually play around with the flavors. And goes to show we've gone all the way from Gascony black oak to American sherry oak and everything in between tonight. And that's kind of the fun of it. Our credit card is feeling your pain. Yeah, that happens. It's going to happen for me as well. I really want to buy an 84. I think I already bought one of those 84s. So I think I need another one. I'm like, okay. So Dave says I normally like 53s, but I didn't like this one. That's fair enough. Look, not every cask is going to be for everyone, but that's the way it goes. My favorite was the 36. 53 is dead last. Okay, yeah. 36 was very good. That is really good. A5 for Justin. Yeah, that's a special Armagnac. That's really nice. Thanks for a great evening, says Betty. Most enjoyable. Looking forward to the next one. Cheers. Thank you, Betty, for tuning in. And thank you, everyone, for coming along on the ride. We did go a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we had some good chats, good questions. Carlie, thank you so much. Just a huge shout out to Carlie Dyer from Starwood Distillery for joining us tonight, our expert in wood discovery of everything. So thank you again.
Pleasure.
And I really appreciate having you on the stream. It's been so good. I will throw up the QR once more for those who are playing along at home. If anyone wants to grab anything that we tasted tonight, we've put a small allocation of some of the whiskies that are not available yet on the website. So there you go. Carlie, I'll see you at Dreams probably if you're kicking around.
Yeah. You're working there.
Yep, awesome. And
I'm gonna get there at 4.
4
p.m.
Doesn't it start at like 12?
Oh, for the afternoon session.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I'll see you there. Thanks everyone for playing along tonight. Really appreciate doing these tastings with you all. Awesome evening. Learnt loads. Fantastic. See you at Dreams as well, Justin. It's going to be great. Thank you for your amazing questions tonight, mate. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and asked questions and had a good time with it. Also, wait,
I'm going to do a social media plug. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Carlie Drams. You can see
there it is. It's in her thing. Please follow Carlie on Instagram. It's good. It's good fun. I've been following her for years. It's madness. Yeah.
I need to do that more often.
No, yeah. I think we all do.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.